It was a normal Monday morning at Wells Fargo Bank in downtown Salt Lake City, Utah. The employees are settling in, coffee is being poured, computers are waking up. It's the kind of morning that feels completely unremarkable, the kind you forget about by the time you get home. But that morning, someone answered the phone, and it's not a business call. It was a man asking for his wife, Lori. She worked there. He just wanted to know if she made it in okay. The answer was no. She hadn't shown up. And that was strange. The man said she left early for a jog, and she should have been there by now. He hadn't heard from her. And just like that, in the span of 30 seconds, something shifted. Lori would have never missed work without calling, without explaining why. And her coworkers knew that immediately because they knew Lori. She wasn't someone that would just disappear, but she had. Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 75 of the Darklivity podcast. I'm your host, Kimbyrleigha, and I'm here with my co-host, the Mr. Brown Fabio himself, my husband and best friend, Jonathan.
Hi. Darklivity is the dark downward slope into the degradation of the human mind and the consequences that such darkness brings to light.
And just so you know, I'm saying Brown Fabio because this weekend I was admiring how gorgeous Jon's hair is. I think it's at record length right now, but I love it. But you remember how you told us if he's going to cut it, we need to warn you. So Jonathan, what's the news on your hair?
I'm going to cut it.
See, so I'm warning you. Take this as your warning that you might come back to one of our next videos and his curls might be completely gone. But we do have some important things we need to tell you. Not that that's not important. One, we are so close to 100,000 subscribers, which is absolutely crazy. But our analytics tell us that a lot of you are watching, but you're not hitting that subscribe button. So please subscribe today if you haven't done so already. It would mean the world to us. It doesn't cost you a thing. And speaking of something that doesn't cost you anything, if you are not getting notifications for any of our videos, mine, Jon's, or other channels, I have a completely free tier on Patreon just for YouTube notifications. So look for that link below as well.
And if you're watching this on a TV or your computer, grab your phone, take a picture, and throw it on Instagram. Tag us. We want to share it.
We'll leave all our social media handles below as well, but it's just Darklivity True Crime. Okay, so I do have a confession to make. I was late posting to my main channel last week, and you know that we try our very best. Right now, I think we're only able to do it every 2 weeks because these cases are pretty in-depth. But I want to tell you what happened because this was actually scary. So back in law school, I went deaf. Not completely, but I'm talking muffled sounds. I couldn't hear. It almost sounded like I was wearing earplugs, and I was freaked out. I woke up like that, didn't know what to do. And the doctors determined that it was from stress-induced hearing loss, because extreme stress can lead to temporary or even permanent hearing loss. Who knew? And that's because it restricts the blood flow to your inner ear. Well, guess what? You remember this? A couple weeks ago, all of a sudden, I was experiencing ringing in my ears, tinnitus. If you've never had it before, it is so hard to live with, especially if you're someone like me who needs to concentrate 4 hours and you're hearing buzzing and ringing and roaring in your ears. It was so hard. And I was desperate to find out what was going on. And I remembered ZocDoc, which we had just told you about. And now I'm sharing with you again because they're the sponsor of today's video, because they are a lifesaver and a time saver.
Yeah, I was there. It was around the middle of the night, around 3 a.m. Kimber was already mid-doom scrolling, trying to figure out what to do. She wanted to get a doctor really fast.
Which I did.
It's so easy. You download the free app or go to ZocDoc's website where you can search and compare high-quality in-network doctors, which means no surprise bills, no guessing games.
And I knew that I needed an ENT, but I love that you can filter for exactly what you're looking for in-network, nearby, and even specific appointment times that actually fit between everything you're doing, like us taking care of Mazzy and then filming. and you don't have to make any phone calls, and there's no waiting on hold.
And before you book, you can look at verified patient reviews and detailed doctor profiles to get a real feel for the provider and what they're like before you ever step into the office.
ZocDoc makes it so easy to book in-network appointments with more than 100,000 healthcare providers. With ZocDoc, you can filter for doctors by insurance, location, and even their specialty. And you can see reviews by those verified patients, so you can choose the best, most convenient care for you.
And the best part is you see real appointment openings in real time. Just tap the time that works for you and instantly book. Done.
And that's exactly what I did. And these are not months out. ZocDoc appointments are fast. They're typically within 24 to 72 hours, and you can even snag some same-day appointments. I got one the very next morning. And you don't have to talk to anyone. So if you're like me and you have phone phobia, it is perfect. With just a few clicks, I was set. I found my ENT. They were in network, and it was so easy to make an appointment. And you don't even have to talk to anyone. So if you're like me and you have phone phobia, it is perfect. With just a few clicks, you are set.
Instead of doom scrolling, take the steps to actually feel better and stop putting off your appointments. Go to ZocDoc.com/Darklivity.
It's also linked in our description box below. Use ZocDoc to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. And thanks so much to ZocDoc for making our lives easier and for making today's video possible. Now let's get into the case for today. By 11 o'clock that Monday morning, July 19th of 2004, Salt Lake City police had a missing persons report. A woman, 27 years old, 5 weeks pregnant, last seen leaving her apartment on foot for an early morning jog through Memory Grove Park. Her car had been found near the entrance to City Creek Canyon, right where she would have parked it if she had gone for a run like she did on a regular basis. Her husband, Mark, was beside himself. He had called her office, he called her mother, he had called the police, and now he was standing on the edge of that park telling anyone who would listen that something was wrong, that she never missed work, that this wasn't like her, that they needed to find her. And within hours, the response was extraordinary because this was Salt Lake City in the summer of 2004. This was just 2 years after the 14-year-old girl named Elizabeth Smart had been taken from her bedroom in the middle of the night. And the entire nation had watched this community hold its breath for 9 months, waiting for her to come home. People did not wait here. They did not sit back and hope that somebody else would handle it. They showed up.
Over 1,000 volunteers came to Memory Grove and the surrounding canyon within hours. They moved through the trails and lines. They called her name. They searched the brush and the creek bed, every inch of ground they could cover. Canines were brought in. The nearby reflecting pool was examined. Helicopters swept the area from above. The whole operation had the desperate, focused energy of people who believed with everything they had that she was out there somewhere and that finding her was simply just a matter of looking hard enough in the right place. Within hours, her face was everywhere, on posters, on the news, across social media, a beautiful young woman with a big smile and a whole life ahead of her.
The kind of face that makes people stop scrolling and actually feel something and want to do something to help. And through all of it, the search teams, the media, and the frantic organizing energy of a community that had shown up for a stranger, her husband was panicked, desperate, visible and available, answering questions, speaking to the reporters and the police, a man who had woken up on an ordinary Monday and found himself standing in front of his community, trying to work through something unimaginable. He wept and he waited and he begged more and more people to come out to help. And somewhere beneath the noise of those 1,000 volunteers calling Lori's name through the trees, the truth was already beginning to surface, and the killer was coming to light because of one detective that would not give up. But before we get into any of that, before we get into what investigators found, what they figured out, and what this case would eventually become, we need to take you back. Because to understand everything that happened on that morning of July 19th of 2004, you need to know who Lori was. And she deserves more than just a missing persons report. Lori Kay Suarez came into this world on New Year's Eve, December 31st of 1976, the last day of the year. And there's something quietly fitting about that, about a person whose entire life would be defined by showing up right on time, following through completely, and never leaving things unfinished, arriving on the one day of the year that feels like a promise, something better just around the corner.
Lori was adopted at just 4 months old by Thelma and Araldo Suarez, and the story of how her parents found each other is worth telling, because it tells you something about the world Lori came from. Araldo was a native of Brazil, a Spanish and Portuguese teacher by profession, and he and Thelma had both been called to serve as LDS missionaries in Rio de Janeiro. That's where they met. That's where the family would eventually become Lori's began. Two people halfway across the world from everything familiar brought together by faith.
It's the kind of origin story that makes everything that came after feel way more meaningful.
They settled in Fullerton, California, and they first adopted Paul and then Lori. And for 10 years, California is where Lori grew up. Sunny, warm, with a ton of activities. She attended Pacific Drive Elementary School and was exactly the kind of child that made a family feel complete. No child is perfect. Parenting is not easy, but Lori was a joy and she was genuinely a happy kid.
She paid attention, she remembered things, she showed up for the people she loved in ways that were small enough to go unnoticed by everyone except for the person she was showing up for. But life shifted early for Lori. When she was just 11 years old, her parents got divorced. And in the way that these things go so often, the family split down the middle. Lori went to live with her mother Thelma, and her brother Paul stayed behind with their father. And just like that, the world that she had known rearranged itself completely. A new city, a new state, a new life to build from the ground up. In 1988, Thelma and Lori packed up and moved to Orem, Utah. Thelma wanted to be close to an LDS community, so off they went, just the two of them. And I think that matters more than it might seem, because when you grow up in a household where it's just you and your mom figuring it out together, where stability isn't something you inherit, but something you actively create, it shapes you in a very specific way. It teaches you that reliability isn't optional. You push through, you commit, and you don't leave things unfinished or with people wondering. It teaches you that the people who love you deserve honesty, and those things were a part of who Lori was.
And Lori learned that young, and she never unlearned it. And for the record, she was not just quiet and serious. We want to make sure you understand that, because it would be easy to hear the words steady and reliable and picture someone a little dull. But that wasn't Lori. Her friends described her as sarcastic, feisty, the kind of person who could make you laugh, but also completely hold her own in an argument before you even realized what happened. She had an edge to her that people didn't always expect. A sharpness, a wit. She was warm, she was funny, and she was the kind of person you wanted in your corner.
Thelma said it in the simplest way. She was beautiful, no question about it, and she was a great kid. And she was beautiful inside and out. She had this long, curly brown hair. It was one of the first things people noticed when they met her. In Orem, Lori continued her education at Windsor Elementary and then Canyon View Junior High, where she was elected 9th grade class president. You get elected because people trust you. Because when they look at you, they think, yeah, that one, she'll actually do what she said she's going to do. And at 16, Lori was already driving herself to school in a car that her father helped her get, while she saved up money and worked at a local car wash.
She graduated from Orem High School in 1995, and she enrolled in Weber State University on a scholarship. After 1 year, she transferred to the University of Utah, and she didn't just get through it, she excelled. She was selected by the Hinckley Institute of Politics for one of the most competitive placements available to undergraduate students, the George S. Eckley's Internship of Business Policy, which sent her to Chevy Chase, Maryland, to work at Mendez, England and Associates, a public administration group.
She even received the University of Utah's President's Award for Outstanding Scholastic Achievements, and she graduated cum laude in December of 1999 with her bachelor's degree in management, and then the following year, she was selected for membership in Beta Gamma Sigma, the honor society for collegiate schools of business. To say that this woman was intelligent and an overachiever would be an understatement.
Yeah, she wasn't someone coasting, she was someone building something. And after graduation, she went to work at American Express, and then eventually Wells Fargo Bank in downtown Salt Lake City, where she worked as a stockbroker's assistant. The people she worked with noticed the same things everyone always noticed about Lori. She was dependable, she was hardworking, and she didn't need to be managed or reminded or chased for a follow-through. She just did what needed to be done, quietly and consistently.
She had bigger plans too. She had been quietly working towards an MBA, putting her own ambitions carefully on the shelf, not abandoned, just waiting for the right moment. The kind of thing you do when you believe the future is going somewhere good, and you want to be ready when it gets there. She was 27 years old. She had a career that she earned, a mother she adored, a faith she believed in, and a very clear sense of where she was going in her life. And she deserved every part of it. But there's someone we haven't introduced you to yet, her husband Mark, her other half, the guy she met midway through high school and had been by her side ever since. But before we tell you all about how they met, hold on to everything you just learned about Lori. How loyal she was, how caring, smart, beautiful, and kind, her steadiness, her follow-through, the way she showed up for people.
His name is Mark Hacking, and the place where everything began was Lake Powell. If you've never heard of it, Lake Powell sits on the border of Utah and Arizona, a massive, sprawling reservoir carved into Red Rock Canyon country, with water so blue against the sandstone, it almost looks fake. People go there in the summer with boats and friends and coolers, and they stay for days. It's loud, it's fun, it's a little chaotic, and for a group of teenagers from Utah County in the mid-90s, it was exactly the kind of trip that felt like an event. The kind of weekend you talked about for years afterwards. Lori was there, just 15 years old, just a couple of years into her new life in Orem, still building something solid with just her and Thelma. She was a sophomore at Orem High School, and she was exactly who she's always been, a genuinely kind person. She cared about people, and she quietly paid attention to everything around her.
And then there was Mark. Mark Hacking was the kind of person you notice immediately, not in a quiet way. He was the opposite of Lori. People noticed her without her even saying a word, but Mark was loud, he was unavoidable, he was the center of every room. He was animated and expressive and effortlessly magnetic. He would tell stories, he would make people laugh, and he just pulled attention towards himself almost without trying. He seemed completely comfortable there at the center of things, with everyone's eyes on him. He was a lot of fun to be around.
He was also, even then, someone who needed to be seen. Not just liked, seen, admired, noticed in a way that went a little deeper than ordinary social charm. And at some point during the trip at Lake Powell, sitting around that campfire at the edge of the water with a group of people watching, Mark reaches into the flames and grabs a burning log with his bare hands.
Why did he do that?
Well, definitely not because it was something that needed to be done, not because anyone asked him to, but because people were watching. Because it would create a moment, because it would make everyone look at him.
Wow, that's either brave or dangerous, risky, I don't know, maybe even foolish, but he was still a teen, so.
Yep, and he didn't just grab it, he held on long enough to make an impression. A mark, one would say. And then reality arrived. He burned himself badly on both hands. The performance was over and the pain was very real. Everyone gathers around and not quite sure what to do, but Lori, she knows what to do. While everyone else stood there reacting, she stepped in. She sat with him, she helped treat the burns, and she stayed with him through the night.
And later on from the trip, she called her mom, and the first thing out of her mouth was, "I met a boy. His name is Mark." And that was it. That was the beginning. And what strikes you about it looking back is that in that way, in that very first moment, their entire dynamic was already set. Mark created the spectacle, Lori handled the aftermath, and he did something reckless to get attention. She responded with steadiness and care. And it's easy to see that as balance. Two people who complemented each other perfectly. And I would call them opposites, and sometimes opposites attract, but I'll tell you why. Not just in looks, because she was only about 5'4" and 100 pounds, brown eyes, brown curly hair. He was tall, blue eyes, and reddish hair that was sometimes a little blonde. And I wonder whether it was the sun or sun-in, because everyone was using it back then. It made my whole head bright orange one summer. But they were opposites in other ways as well.
From the outside, Lori and Mark did make sense together. He was outgoing, she was grounded, he filled every room, and she made every room feel more stable. They were the kind of couple people looked at and thought, yeah, this works. Lori would call Mark her big old teddy bear. Mark used to stop to help neighbors fix things, the neighborhood handyman. Sometimes he would even show up late for their dates because he was helping someone with a repair. Her mom was impressed by that. She liked that her daughter was dating such a good kid.
They also shared something that went deeper than just personality. It was their faith. Both Lori and Mark had grown up in the LDS Church, which, in case you don't know, and that's okay if you don't, it's the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They were Mormon. And in that community, that shared foundation meant something real, and it meant that they saw the world through the same lens. It meant that they had the same vision of what a good life looked like: loyalty, family, commitment, purpose, and faith. It meant they were building towards the same future. They dated throughout high school, and even when distance came between them, they pursued their degrees, and Mark went on a mission, And then on August 7th of 1999, they got married in Bountiful, Utah in a temple, which in the LDS faith is not a small thing. A temple marriage requires that you're in good standing with the church. It's a statement of commitment of faith, a shared vision of forever. It tells everyone around you exactly who you are and what you stand for.
Now, let me tell you about the family that Lori was marrying into, because they were impressive. Mark was born April 24th, 1976 to Doug and Janet Hacking. Mark's father was a well-respected local pediatrician, and his mother, Janet, was a nurse. His brothers and sisters, 3 of each, were by every account extremely bright and extremely successful. There was Scott, Chad, and Lance, and his sisters were Sarah, Julie, and Tiffany. And I'll just tell you about the brothers, what they went on to do. His eldest brother got his master's degree in electrical engineering, and his youngest brother went into medicine like their father and became a cardiologist. And his other brother in the Department of Defense.
All professional achievements running deep through this entire family. In that household and in that community, success wasn't just something to aspire to, it was actually an expectation. It was part of their family's identity and the Mormon culture. And Mark, he was charming, he was energetic, he was expressive and intelligent, just like everyone else in the Hacking family. Mark seemed like he was on the right track to meet all of his goals, and he was aiming high.
He talked about his future constantly, about school, about becoming a doctor, not in vague, uncertain terms, but with confidence and detail. He was going to become an oncologist.
He talked about it in a way that someone talks when they know exactly where they're going. And his father had done it, his brothers had done it, and Mark, the way he told it, was going to do it too. He carried himself like someone who belonged in that world. He had a plan, and he talked about it like a man who was living it. And now Lori was too. They had made a promise to one another in that temple, in the most sacred place their faith had to offer. They honestly were the picture-perfect couple. People envied what they had. They had the kind of marriage that people in their community pointed to and quietly thought, that's what it's supposed to look like. That's the blueprint. And it didn't stop after the marriage. It only became stronger.
They were active in their church, they were connected to their community, and they were a young couple that everyone liked, that everyone rooted for. Even Lori's brother loved Mark. Actually, he said that he was jealous of him. He could do anything, and he was just all around the best. He said, if you could think of the best person to be with your sister, it would be someone like Mark.
Mark was working towards his degree at the University of Utah, studying psychology, building the foundation for what would come next. And Lori was thriving, working at Wells Fargo. They were moving forward together step by step. Lori was always there to support Mark, just like she had from the first day they met. She knew she would need to step up for a little bit while he went to medical school. So she did put her MBA plans on hold. Now, not forever, but just until Mark finished school and they were settled somewhere new. It was a practical decision.
The years passed. They attended church together. They spent time with family. Mark would even leave Lori love notes to find when she got home from work. By 2004, everything was accelerating in the best way possible.
They were living in a 2-bedroom apartment at 127 South Lincoln Street in Salt Lake City, Utah.
Mark had worked hard. He stayed focused, and the payoff had finally arrived. He'd been accepted to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill School of Medicine, one of the most respected programs in the country. He had weighed his options carefully, considered multiple schools, and Chapel Hill was the one where he was going.
The preparations that followed were thorough. Mark and Lori visited UNC campus together. They walked the grounds, they looked at the student housing, they talked about what their life was going to feel like in that completely new city when they moved. They discussed the restaurants they wanted to try, the routes that Lori would run in the morning because she was an avid runner, and what it would mean to start somewhere fresh. They even signed a rental agreement for a new apartment, and they started packing boxes at the one they had been living in back in Salt Lake City.
Lori gave notice at Wells Fargo. It was a big deal. She was not someone who made impulsive decisions. She was not someone who walked away from stability on a whim. Giving notice at her job was a deliberate, considered, deeply intentional act. It meant that she was ready. It meant that the future ahead of them was the one that she had fully accepted and completely stepped into. And there was more than one reason she was so sure. The news that made everything feel more extraordinary.
Lori was pregnant. She was about 5 weeks along, their very first child, and it was such an exciting time. It was actually Mark that told Lori's mother. They were really close. I mean, she had known him since he was only 15. She watched him grow up since he was wearing braces and taking Lori on dates to high school events and to them becoming adults. Thelma was so excited. She knew they wanted kids. But she was also a little worried about how much Lori would be doing between the move, working, and then bringing this new baby into the world. But if anyone could handle it, Lori could. Lori told her other family members quietly, the way you do when something is still new and a little fragile, and you want to hold it close for just a moment before the whole world knows. She was going to be a mother, Mark was going to be a father, and they were moving to North Carolina, a new city, a new chapter, a new life, and now a new person coming right into the middle of all of it.
The last time Thelma saw her daughter was on July 4th of 2004, just 2 weeks before everything changed. Lori and Mark came to Thelma's house for dinner. They went together to the Stadium of Fire, the big Independence Day celebration held every year in Provo. They sat together, the three of them, watching fireworks light up the Utah sky. Thelma looked over at her daughter, and Lori just looked so happy. No one could have imagined that she would disappear in a matter of weeks. Thelma had no idea this would be the last time she'd ever see her daughter alive.
Standing there in the summer of 2004, from every angle and every direction, Lori was a woman on the edge of everything she ever wanted. A career that she had built, a faith she believed in, and a mother she adored, a pregnancy she was quietly thrilled about, and a husband that she had loved since she was in high school, a future that was finally completely within reach. And then on the morning of July 19th, something happened.
Mark Hacking woke up that morning and his wife wasn't there.
But he wasn't immediately worried because Lori was a runner, an early morning jogger who liked to get out the door before the heat settled in and it got really hot because there it would get over 100 degrees. She wanted to get out before the day started, before the world got loud. And Memory Grove Park was one of her favorite routes, a beautiful stretch of trails winding through cottonwood trees just northeast of downtown Salt Lake City. She went often, and sometimes Mark would go with her, but it wasn't out of the ordinary for her to go all by herself. That was pretty normal. And she would also like to be up before Mark, so he assumed that's where she was.
So he got up, he got ready, and when enough time passed and she still hadn't come home before heading to work as usual, Mark called her office at Wells Fargo to see if she might have gone into work right after her run.
And she hadn't.
That's when the concern set in. Mark called the police at 10:07 a.m. and reported his wife missing. He told them that she'd left on her usual morning jog at Memory Grove and never came home. He then called again at 10:46 to tell them that he located her car. He'd gone out there searching for her, and there was her gray Chrysler Sebring. It was parked near the entrance of City Creek Canyon, right where she usually parked it before going on a run.
Mark also called Thelma, Lori's mom, at around 10:30 that morning while she was at work, and he told her the same thing, that Lori went jogging and she hadn't come back, and that he was scared. And Thelma dropped what she was doing and she started making the hour drive to Salt Lake City. Usually the police would wait around 24 hours, but within just an hour, the response was extraordinary because I told you, Salt Lake City, summer of 2004, we briefly mentioned this, but just 2 years after, Elizabeth Smart had gripped the nation and reminded everyone in that community that terrible things can happen to someone they knew and loved. People were not going to wait and see. They were going to show up and do something. Chris Smart, Elizabeth's nephew, was among those helping organize the search volunteers.
And they did. Here was a young pregnant woman that was missing, and this area was unforgiving. I'm talking about steep canyon drops and places that were not that safe. There was an encampment of people who lived out in the wilderness. They had nowhere else to go, and it wasn't the safest area. Everyone was worried. Over 1,000 volunteers descended on Memory Grove Park and the surrounding area. They combed through trails, they searched the canyon, and they called her by name. They moved through the trees in lines, shoulder to shoulder, looking for any sign of a young woman who had gone on a morning run and hadn't come home.
And then there was Mark, and he was a wreck. His whole family had met him there. They were searching, helping, they were passing out flyers, doing anything they could. His brothers were even going door to door. They were asking their neighbors if anyone saw Lori because you couldn't miss her. All that hair, the way it would bounce when she ran, someone had to see something, but no one had. And some of the investigators that worked on Elizabeth Smart's case were working this one. And they felt like in Elizabeth's case, they didn't go deep enough into the canyon. So this time, they weren't going to make that mistake. They were going to go as far as they could and look for Lori.
Mark was talking to everyone, giving them all the information he could. He spoke to the searchers, he spoke to the media, he talked with the police, and people looked at him and felt for him immediately. Many comforted him, cried with him, because what could be worse than this? Your pregnant wife goes for a run, she doesn't come back, and all you can do is wait and hope and beg people to come out and help you. And he did beg. He went on camera and he told the public to come. Anyone that could please help look for Lori. Even his dad spoke out, and Lori's mom did too. They were desperate.
The only options are that she was abducted or she ran away. And the option that she ran away is nobody believes that.
The search continued through the day and into the evening. Canines were brought in. The reflecting pool inside Memory Grove was examined, and volunteers kept coming and kept looking and kept hoping. But let's turn to the actual investigation, because the search was just one part. But right away, the first officers from Salt Lake City Police Department had called in homicide investigators because they just did not have a good feeling about this entire situation. They thought that Lori had been abducted, and the lead on this case was Detective Kelly Kent. And she becomes my favorite person in this case. She's fiery, she's experienced, she's serious about her job, and she was determined to find Lori. Investigators are really good at pattern recognition. It's not something they announce, it's just something that happens when you have spent enough time working cases just like this. And it wasn't just about experience, she had intuition. It's not just a gut feeling, it's wisdom from repetition. It's knowing things because you're so tuned in, you become an expert. And she was. She was taking in every detail.
So next, Kent wanted to know more about who Lori was. So when Mark let them into the apartment to gather some photos for missing persons posters, Detective Kent took that opportunity to look around.
But this was not an official search. It was just Kent using her eyes to observe what life was like for Lori and Mark. She doesn't know them. She knew nothing about their past, their plans, nothing. Kent was looking at how they lived. That was the way she put it. Who were they, and what did they do on a regular basis? What were their habits?
The first thing she noticed were all the boxes packed up, taped, labeled with markers, clearly ready for a move. They were everywhere.
But what was also there was a red purse.
Lori's purse. Detective Kent and her partner, Detective Taylor West, could see it was full. Lots of personal items, including a wallet.
Everything that you would expect a woman to take with her if she even just went on a run. And she took her car, so wouldn't she take her bag? Detective Kent thought so, and she even said, women don't leave without their purses, but there it was, left behind, which she thought was strange.
But it's not impossible. Maybe she forgot it. Maybe she didn't think she needs it for a quick morning run. Maybe she took what she needed because she thought she'd be right back.
No, because Kent didn't think the apartment was cooperating with that narrative because that wasn't all. Her car keys were there too. Now, that was the first real problem that presented itself because according to Mark, Lori had driven herself to Memory Grove Park that morning. And that's about a 10-minute drive away. And he said he found her car there himself. He had called it into the police. But if her keys were sitting in the apartment, how did she drive herself?
Maybe they had an extra set. We have an extra set.
That's true, and we use them all the time. But Kent was just gathering information. And that's when she saw the flowers.
The flowers?
The flowers. And okay, this can be disputed, but Kent was a woman, and she believed there were two kinds of flowers that women get from a man, and she assumed Lori wasn't buying herself flowers, so that meant Mark got them for her. And the two reasons would be, one, I love you, I'm out thinking about you, I randomly come across some flowers, I get them, and that is not an extreme gesture, it's just sweet. But the other reason is the I effed up bouquet, or how you put it.
Oopsie daisies.
And I know every household is completely different. We love having fresh flowers. So John always gets me flowers every week. But generally speaking, not everyone does. Sometimes flowers are usually for a special occasion. And now the I messed up bouquet, or the oopsie daisies as he put it, was going to be a bigger one. That I'm sorry, please forgive me type, accept this as a peace offering. And they're usually more expensive. And Kent believed that was the type of flowers that were sitting on the kitchen counter on display as a big gesture. And to her, that meant something. It meant something was wrong in this marriage. Something had happened, and it happened before these flowers had a chance to wilt. She felt like Mark may have had a reason to apologize to Lori. Was Lori mad at Mark and now she's missing?
But that was an assumption.
It was an assumption, definitely. But when you're walking into a situation that just doesn't feel right, you develop a sensitivity to the things that are slightly off. The details that just don't quite fit. And there were more. That's right. We're not done with them walking through this apartment. When Detective Kent made her way to the bedroom, there she saw Lori's jewelry box. And right inside was her diamond wedding ring, and that stood out. She did not think that Lori would take off her ring just for a regular jog.
Some people do, though.
And you're not wrong. But these were just the subtle little things that Detective Kent was taking note of. But there were more. There was the bedding. The sheets on the mattress had creases in them. They were the kind of creases that everyone knows are caused when the sheets are being nicely folded into that flat little plastic package. And most people immediately wash new sheets because, one, formaldehyde, it smells, and also to smooth them out so those creases are not there. So you're not sleeping on them and they're not itchy. And these did not even look slept in.
Right, they look brand new. But according to Mark, his wife had slept in it just a few hours ago.
And Kent was like, no way. She already had her suspicions. It wasn't just one thing, it was all of it put together. She pointed out the purse, the keys, the fact that Lori's car was at the park, but her keys were in the apartment. She laid each detail out quietly, one at a time in her mind, without making it too obvious. And then she actually asked Mark about them, and she watched him react. And he had explanations. For the keys, like you said, he was like, we had a spare, and maybe she used that. And he hadn't even thought about it until just now. Kent doesn't react. She just moves to the next thing.
The bed, the bedding, the fact that it was still new, creased, still perfect, still looking like it had never been slept in. How did he explain that?
Well, Mark did have an explanation. He said that Lori had apparently gotten something on the sheets and it's stained. So they removed those sheets and got their new pack that they already had in their closet, opened it up, and put it on the bed.
Kent still thought it was odd because they were so fresh, as in not from the night before. No one slept on those, so where were the stained ones? And when did this all happen? She still thought it was odd that Lori wouldn't have laundered the new sheets before putting them on the bed. She made a comment about it, and Mark mentioned that he had to put them on while she was on her run just to take something off her plate.
And I thought about that too, but he's really busy as well. He's, working hard to get into med school, but I guess a person could totally put sheets on without washing them, especially if they are busy.
Don't forget about the bathtub.
That's right. She walks into the bathroom. She notices the bathtub is spotless.
And it smells like bleach.
They had their suspicions, but they had to be set on hold for now. They needed to go back out to the search zones. The sun was going down, and the chief of police, Rick Dentz, had requested their presence. They all left the apartment, including Mark, and they gathered together outside. The investigative team had these search zones. They were separated into different directions, and some were in one, others were at different ones. Some people were tracking down offenders in the area, and they were being questioned as well.
The search was massive at this point. There were tons of volunteers as well as law enforcement in the front of Lori and Mark's apartment on Lincoln Street. Kent noticed Mark's red Durango was parked out there, and she immediately wanted a chance to look inside. So she simply asked Mark if she could, and he said, yes, of course, search anywhere you need.
So they did. They opened up the passenger's area of the car. They're looking around, and there wasn't much in there, but they do spot a Yellow Pages in the front seat.
Another Yellow Pages.
I know this is the third case that we've done recently that mentioned the Yellow Pages, but Kent flipped through real fast, and a receipt fell out. She picks it up, and she's stunned. She looks at the date. It's dated that day, July 19th, that morning, the day that Lori goes missing, and it's timestamped 10:23 a.m.
So was it the bedding?
No, it was a mattress.
Oh yeah, that's pretty suspicious.
Yeah, he bought a brand new mattress on the morning he reported his wife missing.
So the chief of police was still out there on the street talking with Mark, and Kent runs over, waving that receipt in her hand, and she shouts, you need to take a look at what they found in Mark's truck. Mark's face went as white as a ghost. He just stared at them. He'd been sobbing and then suddenly went quiet.
Well, he was doing what Kent called a dry cry. It's when your face looks like you're crying, but everything's dry. You have no tears, no runny nose, but then he just stops. And he's like tuned into what Detective Kent is showing her chief, the mattress receipt. She mentions the bedding, the keys, the purse, all in front of Mark, and Mark just blurts out, you think I hurt her, don't you? And this is why I love how feisty this woman is. She looked right at him and she's like, no, I know you killed her and I'm going to prove it. It was a very dramatic moment. Even her partner was like, whoa, if you're wrong, our asses are on the line. But Ken was like, I'm not wrong. It had only been 7.5 hours and Detective Kent had a theory.
After that interaction, Mark left. He walked back into his apartment and closed the door. But Kent and her partner, Detective West, followed directly behind him, knocking loudly. He answers, and Kent tells him she has a consent to search form, and he can either sign it and willingly allow them in to do a more in-depth search, or she will go and get a search warrant from a judge, and they'll come in anyway. If he's innocent, he shouldn't care.
Exactly. And he does give them permission, and they walk right in, and Kent walks right back into the room. She goes past him and goes right there to look at that new mattress herself. And right away, she noticed the mattress had been replaced, but the box spring was still there. And they were two different colors. You usually buy a box spring and a mattress together. You usually want them to match, and these didn't. The box spring was a beige color and it was older. The mattress was lighter and brand new. And Mark's standing right there, and she asked him, what was up with this? Mark had an explanation. He said Lori had her menstrual cycle on it. It stained the pillow top, and they'd been meaning to replace it. They just didn't intend to bring it to North Carolina, so they wanted to do it before the move. I mean, the move was just days away. Mark's own father had already taken an entire week off of work, specifically to drive with Mark and Lori to North Carolina and help them move into their new place. So back on July 15th, Lori emailed friends all about their new North Carolina address. She already had a specific address, attended her going away party at Wells Fargo that same evening, and there's actually a photo of her holding a farewell cake that reads, "We'll miss you, Lori." It was taken 4 days before she vanished.
And the movers were scheduled to pick up their boxed belongings on July 22nd. So if they were truly getting rid of things they didn't want to pay to move, they would potentially go out and buy a new mattress and discard the old one.
But here's the thing, and Detective Kent realized this right away. They had heard she was pregnant, right? They're looking for a missing pregnant woman. So she would not have had her period on it. I mean, over 6 weeks ago, maybe, or longer, considering she was already 5 weeks along.
I was assuming he meant it happened a while back and they just kept using it since they knew they were going to move and get another one.
But then Mark said something weird. He told the investigators that he got rid of the mattress the night before and that he and Lori slept on the box spring. And at that point, Detective Kent was like, I do not believe that. That would be super uncomfortable.
Then they spot a knife inside a sheath right on Mark's nightstand next to his bed. And then when they open it up and remove the knife, there's blood on it and what looks like hair or fibers of some kind. And Mark's watching them and he says right away that that's from an animal. He's like, when I'm on break from med school, I use it when I go hunting. Kent didn't react. She just kept looking. And then she saw it. Small spots of what looked like blood. Very subtle and easy to miss if you aren't looking for them on the headboard. They quickly called CSI techs to take swabs for analysis.
And speaking of med school, Kent asks Mark about this, about what he was studying, and he says oncology. And there's Detective Kent who's making written notes. And she said, oh, I'm sorry, can you please spell that for me? She truly wasn't sure how to spell it. She was not trying to make this into a pivotal moment, but it becomes one because he can't spell it.
He couldn't spell oncology?
Right. He was going into that field, but spelled it with an A and not an O. It was all wrong. Now, on a hunch, Kent made her way outside because now she wants to check the communal dumpsters behind the apartment building just to see if there's any evidence disposed of in there, any bloody napkins or cleaning supplies. And it was mostly empty, except for one of those plastic packages that the sheets come in, which Kent assumed came from Lori and Mark's bedroom. But other than that, nothing was in there. But then she had a thought. What if?
What if?
What if Lori had been in there?
Like before it was picked up.
Exactly. And Mark was still watching and he's standing by and observing all of this. So she's thinking out loud and she says, I wonder when the garbage in this dumpster was collected.
Mark actually answered her question quickly without hesitation. He said, this grid gets emptied Monday morning.
Grid?
Yes, grid. And right away, Kent was thinking, who says it that way? Uses the word grid like they researched it. She looked at her partner and said, he threw her in this dumpster. She runs to her supervisor, Sergeant Miller, and said, call the dump. Make them shut it down. He said, no. He's like, do you have any idea how expensive that is? We can't do that, especially not on a hunch. Kent didn't think it was. She believed she was connecting the dots.
Meanwhile, there was an officer that was talking to Mark at the police station. He was asking him questions about whether Lori had any extramarital affairs that he knew about and whether he did. They were just trying to rule out a second lover or something like that. And Mark said, no, neither one of them were unfaithful. They had a happy marriage. There were no other people in their lives. The point of this interview was to get Mark to agree to do a polygraph test so they could either pursue him further or look in another direction. It's just a tool to know which direction to go in, since it's not admissible in court. The polygrapher began asking Mark to repeat what he said happened that morning in detail so that he could create what's called a baseline for the test, and because he said he hadn't heard everything yet. As the investigator took notes, Mark repeated the timeline. Let's play it for you.
Okay. I haven't been involved with the case very much. I've been over at the DA's office all day. They just sent me up there just a little bit before you came out. What I need to do is kind of just tell me, in your words, what's been going on so far today.
My wife got up at 5 this morning, went running, and I stayed in bed. I woke up at 8, and she hadn't awakened me when she got home and showered and went to work at 7. At least I thought that's what had happened. I normally, sometimes, most of the time I drive her to work, and she wakes me up when she's ready and I take her to work, but sometimes she drives. So, and today she was driving. So, when I woke up and she was gone, I just figured she hadn't awakened me, just let me sleep. And so I got up at 8, did some things. I played my Nintendo a bit, and we needed a new mattress. We decided to get one, so I went, and we had been shopping around, looking at different places, and I had found one.
What time was that?
I left my place at about 9. And drove around. Most of the places were closed where I was looking, but one place said on the door that they would open at 10. But I got there.
What place was that? You know,
I can't remember the name, but it's right next to RC Willie. I was there at probably a little after 9, and the door was open. I went in and someone helped me, and they had the mattresses we were looking at. They were Extreme Comfort or something like that, and it was a good deal. So
how much did you pay for it?
$500, somewhere around there. We needed new pillows too. Our pillows were pretty shot, and I bought 2 pillows.
Okay, did you buy sheets or anything like that to go along with them?
No.
No, didn't buy any sheets?
No.
Spent about $600 on the mattress and the pillows.
About that.
Okay. But you don't remember the name of the place?
It's called something like it has something to do with sleeping comfortably or something like that. Like that's the title.
Okay, so you buy the mattress. Did they deliver? Did you have to take it home, or how did it work?
Took it home.
You took it home? In what kind of vehicle? About what time did you leave the store? Let's keep the timeline down here. Just
9:30.
So you wasn't there very long. Was really quick.
No.
Okay, so you took the mattress home in your car.
On top of my car.
On top of your car. Did you tie it down or anything, or what'd you tie it down with?
Twine.
Do you know where the twine's at now? Do you know what happened to it?
It should be in my dumpster.
Okay, what happened after you got the mattress home?
I put it on my bed. I was putting sheets on. Called my wife while I was putting sheets on, and someone else answered the phone.
About what time is this?
About 10.
You called wife's cell phone?
No.
No.
Her
Work phone?
Phone.
What was the reason for the call?
Just to say hi.
Okay. Call wife's work phone. Someone else answered.
I asked to talk to my wife. He said something along the lines, is Lori okay? And I
Brandon
said,
asked you that?
yeah, and I said, I don't know. And he told me she hadn't come in. So I went looking for her.
Okay, how did you know where to go look?
Because she runs in the same place every day.
She goes up there every single day?
No.
Most of the time?
5 or 6 days a week.
Okay. Okay, about what time was it you left to go look for her?
Just after 10, just right away.
So it was close to 10, 10, 15, 10, 10?
Something like that. Yeah.
Okay. Did you see what she was wearing? You've probably given that information. You didn't? Okay. Any assumption? Does she have like shorts she wears all the time? Does she have different ones? Or
Different ones.
different ones each day, huh? Okay, so you went looking up there. When did you decide to call the police?
Right away. Right. I tried before I left the apartment, but it was busy. So I grabbed my phone book.
What number did you dial? Do you know?
Dispatch.
The phone was busy, or did it have a recording, or what
It
was
was
it?
busy.
Like B, B, B. You don't remember what number it was you called?
No, but I called the same one from my car.
Okay. But how long was it when you called back again in your car?
Just a matter of minutes, 3 minutes. 4
And you
minutes.
got in okay? Okay. So you called before you even got up there to look for her? Okay. Okay, what happened when you got up to Memory Grove? Did you get up there before the police, or about how long did it take you to drive up there?
10 minutes,
So now we're around about 10:30,
probably.
say. Did you find her car?
Mm-hmm.
Does she park it in the same place when she goes jogging up there, or? I haven't been up there. I don't know where it's at or anything.
There's not, it's just on the street. Just
Is it on the road that goes around, or is it up the canyon?
down in Memory Grove.
Down at the bottom by the gate and all
Mhm.
that? Okay. And that's just where you found it? You're not sure that's where she always parks it or anything?
She parks it on that road every time.
Every time?
And just, you say the same place. It's on the
I
road.
mean general,
Right.
not the same
Okay.
parking spot. Nobody can get there.
Right.
Okay, did the cops arrive shortly after you, or were they already there?
No, they told me they couldn't look for her for 24 hours.
That's what they told you on the phone? Okay. So how did you finally get him up there?
Other people called.
Other people called? Do you know who? So other people called and then they said they'd go up there?
People she works with, co-workers, but I
Okay.
don't know who.
Did you call them and tell them that that's what they had told you or anything? For fellow workers, or did they all just start calling in on their own?
When I got to Memory Grove this morning, they knew what was going on because I'd been on the phone with them and I told them I was
Okay.
going out there, and they just showed up.
All of our friends?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know how many of them called in?
Called the police?
Yeah.
I don't know. I was up searching when they called and said, the police are here now.
They called you on your cell phone and told you. Hey, do you know about what time the cops arrived up there? No idea.
11.
Okay. Okay. And between that time, you had been up looking in the shrubs and all that? Okay. Okay. That brings us that's about the twist of it right there.
He repeated what he already said. His answers came without any hesitation. He sounded on the surface like a man who had already told this story several times, and he had it memorized.
He also sounded pretty frustrated to me, like, I don't want to be here, like he was sick of explaining things. But to recap, he said she got up at 5 a.m., he stayed in bed, he woke up at 8, she wasn't there. She was supposed to be at work at 7. He drives her to work most days, but sometimes she drives herself, like that day. He figured she just hadn't woke him up. He got up, played Nintendo because that's really important before getting on with his day.
But he said he knew they needed a new mattress, and he and Lori had been shopping around, so he went out about 9 a.m. to buy one. Most stores were closed, but one store opened at 10 and the door was open. So he went in and someone helped him. He got a good deal on a mattress and 2 pillows, and he spent like $600. He said he left the store around 9:30, and about 10 a.m. he called her work while putting the sheets on the bed.
And then he went looking for her. And he said he called the police right away, but it was busy. And that's because he didn't actually call 911. He called the dispatch center, the non-emergency line. And because he knew he had to call back, that's why he took the phone book with him in the car, because he didn't know the number. And I just thought it was weird, because why wouldn't you call 911? But some people don't want to make a big deal out of something because they don't know if it is an emergency right away. And he finally got through when he called again. And he told the investigator he thinks the cops got there around 11 a.m.
With that, the investigator was ready to administer the polygraph, and that's when Mark begins to hesitate. He's already agreed, but now he's backpedaling. Let's listen.
I just had to get a basis for the questions. Okay, let me explain the test to you. You understand it so you feel comfortable with it, and so you won't be afraid of it.
Okay.
What this is a truth verification machine. Okay, have you ever had a lie detector test, the old-fashioned type? If you've seen them on TV, Okay, they have like the box and they have all the arms going around, the papers rolling, the guy's sitting in the chair and he's all strapped up and all that stuff. Okay, that was developed in the 1930s. Okay, we're hoping technology's advanced a little more since then, and that's what this is. Okay, before we get going, we need to take care of some items of business here. How do you spell your last name?
Hackking.
Okay. This is just waiver form. It's basically saying you're taking this of your own free will. Nobody's forcing you or coercing you or anything of that nature.
Okay.
So you can agree with that. If you can agree with that, just sign that there.
Okay. I do feel coerced into taking this.
And how do you feel? I mean, let me explain this to you. Nobody's making you take this test. If you don't want to, you can walk right out that door.
And what happens to me?
You walk out the door and I take you back up to your car.
Okay. And if I refuse, of course that makes me look guilty.
It's not admissible in court anyway.
So what are you doing?
Just gives us, we trust the machine, the courts just don't. See what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It just gives us something to verify the information we've got so far. And obviously, as you said, obviously, we got some concerns about this mattress thing. Okay, obviously some concerns are going to come up about that, and we just want to get them clarified. Because we interview people that have killed people all the time, and they don't tell us the truth. That's why we have this machine. You see where we're coming from? If somebody's killed somebody, they're not going to come out and tell us, yeah, I killed them. And that's what this machine is just for.
But at the same time, I've got these circumstances that look bad.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, and then I asked him, I said, after the lie detector test, and I pass it, can we be done with everything? And he said, yes. So I feel like if I don't take this, then I'm just going to be drilled.
Well, here's the other thing. If you got nothing to worry, if you haven't done anything, you have nothing to worry about, even if they do go through that evidence. Do you know what I'm saying? You have nothing to lose by this.
I don't think I want to take it.
Okay. And nobody's going to force you to.
I really like how the investigator's like, it's a truth verification machine. But Mark said he felt coerced into taking the test. And he wanted to know what would happen if he walked out. And then he says, if I refuse it, it's going to make him look guilty. The investigator told him they just had concerns about the mattress. And Mark said, the circumstances look bad. But he said, if I pass this test, could they be done with him? He felt like if he didn't take it, they would continue to drill him. And I was like, yeah, that's how it works. They're going to continue drilling you and any other potential suspects until they solve the case. Ultimately, Mark walks out. He said he doesn't want to take it, and that was that.
What was interesting was with all the interviews being conducted, investigators heard that Mark actually told Lori's friends that he had already run her usual jogging route twice, 3 miles each way before calling them. That's 6 miles of jogging he claimed to have done before 10 a.m., buying a mattress, and being at the apartment putting the sheets on.
But before they could dive deeper into any time inconsistencies, a call came in. It was late now on the same night, July 19th, and police were responding to a disturbance call from Chase Suites Hotel on 400 South, and it was Mark hacking. He was in the middle of the street, unclothed, incoherent, and babbling like a man who had completely lost his grip on reality. Someone in a manic or psychotic state.
One of his brothers was en route to come help him, but he wasn't totally naked, and that stood out. He was wearing his sandals, and that small detail was important. Officers have seen their fair share of mental breakdowns, and people don't worry about their shoes when they're truly in psychosis. Mark was able to articulate his desire to be taken to the University Neuropsychiatric Institute, which just happened to be the same facility where he worked the night shift as an orderly. He was admitted for a mental evaluation, which meant he was insulated from further inquiries, and that investigators weren't allowed in there. They couldn't get a DNA sample, they couldn't swab his hands, and they couldn't take photos of his body to see if there were any marks that indicated a struggle.
And Detective Kent thought that was more than a coincidence. More like it was very convenient for Mark, and he was working there, so we would have known that patients would be protected. It seemed like he knew the walls were closing in on him, but this was only day one of this investigation, and each one starts with the person closest to the victim. And they didn't even know if Lori was a victim of anything. Maybe she left him. Maybe she willingly walked away. They didn't know where she was, so no crime had been committed as far as law enforcement was concerned. And there were people who loved Mark, the same people that loved Lori. And they never once ever considered Mark having anything to do with this. Those who heard that he was admitted to the psych facility actually felt terrible for him.
Of course they did, because what else could explain a man coming apart like that except grief, maybe fear, the unbearable weight of not knowing what had happened to his pregnant wife. Even his own father had already asked his son if he had anything to do with Lori going missing, and he said no. And Doug said he had never known his son to lie to him his entire life, so he had to believe he was telling the truth. But the same night, Sergeant Miller, the one who declined Detective Kent's request to shut down the dump, he was out having a cigar. On his break, he pulls over and parks behind an LDS ward that was just a block away from Lori and Mark's apartment, and his headlights shined right on something, a dumpster.
Now, it wouldn't have really stuck out if it wasn't for something sticking out of it. A mattress. A torn and cut up mattress. The pillow top had been sliced off. It was all jagged and torn, and something about it just didn't sit right with him, especially after what Detective Kent had said. So he called her, and he asked, what color was the box spring at Lori and Mark's apartment? And Detective Kent says, it's beige with flowers kind of sewn in. Why? And he's like, because I'm looking at the matching mattress.
Wow.
Yeah. And this was at 951 East 100 South, only a block away, like you said, from where the dumpster was behind their apartment. They seize the dumpster, they transport all of its contents for forensic examination, and the tags on the mattress match the box spring still sitting in Lori and Mark's apartment. It was their mattress in that dumpster, the same one Mark had told investigators that Lori had asked him to replace before the move.
Well, he did say he got rid of it the night before.
He did. But why would you put it in another dumpster? Why wouldn't you just put it in the dumpster behind your apartment? Maybe because Kent was right, and something or someone, Lori, was already inside.
So why was it cut up?
I don't know that part, maybe to make it easier to discard. But what I do know is they obtained a full search warrant for the apartment as well as 24-hour patrol so that no one was allowed to go in and out unless they were part of the investigation. The very next day on July 20th, law enforcement gets a call from Chapel Hill, from the medical school. And they had seen the news about Lori Hacking going missing and her husband being an incoming med student. And of course that got their attention. They want to help. They wanted to know more about Mark, but when they go to look him up in their system, he doesn't exist.
Wait, what?
He wasn't enrolled in medical school. He hadn't even applied. There was literally no record of a Mark Hacking at all. And while all this is going on, his pregnant wife is missing, a full-blown investigation's happening. He's literally in the mental health facility watching cartoons and eating pizza. But at the same time, he was claiming he was so overwhelmed and stressed out by not knowing where Lori was, he was on 24-hour watch for self-harm.
And there was a reason for that beyond grief alone. The reason Mark was acting so erratic the night before was because he had apparently made an attempt on his life. He went to a store, he bought medications, and he bought alcohol. He then went to the Chase Suite Hotel and mixed them together, believing the combination would end things.
It didn't work the way he planned. Instead of losing consciousness, he went into a state of delirium, a fractured, half-real mental state. And then he was found outside, as we told you, in the middle of the street, outside the hotel, babbling and completely unraveling.
Oddly, when police responded to the disturbance, they found something Mark left behind, his Palm Pilot. It was collected as part of processing the scene that night.
In case you don't know, because it is something from the 90s, the Palm Pilot is almost like a note-taking device. It's not a phone, but it's like it. It's almost like a BlackBerry without the phone.
On the screen was a single note, and it was pulled up, and on it were 3 words. This is justice.
So we hate to do this to you, but there has been a lot of information up until this point, so we're going to actually be coming back for a part 2. I feel like we haven't done a part 2 in a long time, but this is a 2-part series. And don't go looking up this case. Remain with us, and we hope to see you real soon. And if part 2 is out right now, you're going to see it up in the cards, or you can see it right here on the screen. We will see you in part 2. Bye.